All right, we got test the microphone. This is a test. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This is a mic test. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Mic test. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Mic test. 1, 2, 3. Is everybody getting audio back there? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Mic test. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Hello, hello. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Mic test. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Everybody all good?
Hi, good morning, folks. This is your 2-minute warning. We'll be getting ready here in just 2 minutes. Sound all good in the back? Thumbs up, guys. Thank you. All right. 2 minutes.
Everybody all set back there? All right. Well, good morning. My name is Bill Schuette, and I have the privilege of serving as Attorney General of the state of Michigan. And with me today are members of our Flint team, Chief Prosecutor Todd Flood, Chief Investigator Andy Arena, and the outstanding prosecutor from Genesee County, my friend David Leighton. Retired Judge Ruth Carter was intended to be here this morning, but she got a touch of the Christmas flu, so we give her an excused absence. And in a moment, you'll hear from Todd and Andy and David. We're back in Flint, a city where so many things went tragically wrong, but a city where those who broke the law will be held accountable, and where justice will be delivered to families of Flint. Our independent investigation of what went wrong in Flint commenced in mid-January of this year. Our entire team has worked very, very hard. This investigation is on a fast pace and a thorough pace, and we will continue to do this right. But I do want to say that we are closer to the end than we are to the beginning. Let me recap where we are. We have filed criminal charges against 9 individuals. Some have taken pleas. Other cases are proceeding to trial. We will aggressively prosecute these cases. We have also filed civil actions against Veolia, a French global conglomerate, and LAN, a Texas-based company. Each of these 2 companies, these 2 entities, were hired to fix the problems at the Flint water plant and the Flint water supply. Veolia and LAN made a bad situation worse and failed in their responsibilities. We have 2 teams, a criminal team and a civil team. 2 teams pulling 1 wagon, and that wagon is called Justice for Flint. Now, there are some, I know, who simply wish that the problems of Flint would just go quietly away. And there are voices out there that hope that the poisoning of the water in Flint could be swept under the rug. And they hope and wish that the 24-hour news cycle would move on to another subject, kind of a let's forget about Flint refrain. And these voices hope to simply blame nameless bureaucrats, call it a day, and move on. Well, that's not how I operate. That's not how we operate. And Flint deserves better. And the people of Flint are not expendable. So to move on is unacceptable. People in positions of responsibility who broke the law must be held accountable. And I know people who for the past 2 years drink nothing but bottled water. And I know people for the past 2 years that only wash their fruits and vegetables with bottled water. Now, you don't do that. I don't do that. And that's not normal. And that's not what Flint's future and expectations should be. So we're going to go forward and do our job, period. And today we're announcing charges that reach a higher level of responsibility. We are announcing charges against 4 individuals, 2 former state-appointed emergency managers, and 2 former employees of the city of Flint. Darnell Early and Jerry Ambrose were state-appointed emergency managers for the city of Flint. Darnell Early served as emergency manager from November of 2013 to January of 2015. Jerry Ambrose served as financial manager and then as emergency manager from January to April of 2015. Both Early and Ambrose are charged with 3 felonies. First, false pretenses and conspiracy, each carrying 20-year prison terms. Now, here are the quick facts. The city of Flint was under receivership and could not issue bonds or borrow money unless there was a fire or a flood or a calamity. That's the language of the statute. Early and Ambrose engaged in a plan to execute an administrative consent order. Think of it as a contract, which permitted the borrowing of tens of millions of dollars, possibly as much as $85 million. And this money was supposed to clean up a so-called environmental calamity, trying to get it into the statute, occurring at a lime sludge lagoon. Well, the money did not go to clean up the lime sludge lagoon because it had been substantially remediated. Instead, the tens of millions of dollars that they borrowed went towards building the KWA, the Karagandhi Water Authority. But here's the catch. Tucked in this administrative consent order, in this contract, was the requirement to use the requirement to use the Flint water treatment plant for drinking water and other purposes for residents of Flint and businesses. This is in the public records. Read the administrative contract order. And you know the rest of the story. The big switch from the Detroit water system to the Flint water system occurred on April 25th, 2014. Rashes, poison of the water, failure to use an anticorrosive, a phosphate, and it goes on and on and on. Now, Early and Ambrose are also charged with misconduct in office, a 5-year felony, and willful neglect of duty, a misdemeanor. Doherty Johnson and Howard Croft. Doherty Johnson and Howard Croft are former employees of the city of Flint. Both Johnson and Croft participated and were part of this effort to borrow money under the pretense of cleaning up the Lime Sludge Lagoon. Both Johnson and Croft are charged with the crime of false pretenses and conspiracy to commit false pretenses. Again, both of these crimes are 20-year felonies. Now, just a word about this investigation. All too prevalent and very evident during the course of this investigation has been a fixation on finances and balance sheets. This fixation has cost lives. This fixation came at the expense of protecting the health and safety of Flint. It's all about numbers over people, money over health. And people ask me about Flint and the water and the justice system all the time. My answer to them is just what I'm saying here today. 12 people have died from Legionnaire's disease. 12 people. That cannot be swept under the rug. Young children have been exposed to dangerously high lead levels. Imagine that. Hoping that would just go away. A pregnant woman or a young infant. You wouldn't want to bathe in that water. The tragedy that we know as the Flint water crisis did not occur by accident. No. Flint was a casualty of arrogance, disdain, and a failure of management. An absence of accountability, shirking responsibility. We will proceed to deliver justice and hold those accountable who broke the law. Period. Let me introduce Todd Flood for a few comments. Todd?
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you. This is another step in the process. In this case, as we charged it right here, is a classic bait and switch. It's a bait and switch where the citizens of Flint got the shaft. That's the simple truth. Health, if you don't have it, you don't have anything. And in this case, the people that were in charge of the city, the emergency managers, who also had a duty to protect health, didn't. They forced the city to use a plant that they knowingly had all the knowledge in the world that the plant wasn't ready to go. But they had received the ability to borrow money, that $85 million, and they just said, well, hey, $85 million a life, and they didn't take care of the life. That came from the public documents. I'm going to try this case in the courtroom. I answer to the Attorney General, Bill Schuette, every day, guaranteed. He's either loving me or yelling at me, one of the two things, but I answer to him, and he is holding us to a high regard of making sure that the citizens of Flint are protected, and that's what we're going to do. There's no other mission in my life than this mission. Thank you.
All right. Andy.
Good morning. I'm Andy Arena, the Chief Investigator on the Flint Water Project. and I will be very brief today. I just want to take you all back 11 months ago in this very building. We held the initial press conference. We announced this investigation, and we said we would follow the evidence from the beginning and let that evidence take us to the truth, and that's what we have done. Now I hear people say it's going too slow, it's going too fast, you're not getting the right people. We can't let that interfere. We can't let that noise interfere with what we're doing. We're doing the right thing. I look out here, Paul Egan and Jim Kurtzner, you guys were with me in Detroit when we took down the public corruption organization known as the Kwame Kilpatrick administration. And that took time, and that started at the bottom. You don't just target people. That's wrong. You're going to miss the boat. You let that evidence take you to the truth, and that's what we've done here. And I think today you see, once again, the investigation has continued to go up and to go out. As the Attorney General said, we're much closer to the end we are at the beginning, but we're not at the end. There is investigation that's still continuing today. There are some people out there right now who know that they've done wrong, and they know we're coming after them. They're not going to have a very Merry Christmas. I don't feel bad about that. But we will continue to follow the evidence. We will continue to investigate this. We owe it to the people of Michigan, and we owe it particularly to the people of Flint. I gave the people of Flint my word 11 months ago that when Bill Schuette asked me to take this role, I asked him, we're going to do it the right way, and he assured me we would. And he has stood by that promise. So to the people of Flint, you're getting justice, and you will get more justice in the future.
Thank you, Andy. Let me introduce my friend and partner, outstanding prosecutor in Genesee County, David Leighton. David?
Thank you, General. You bet. Good morning. I just want to make a couple of quick points here, and that is, number one, I'm in the room for this investigation and at the table, and I am appreciative to the Attorney General for including me in that. But what's important about that is that I'm from here. I'm Flint. I'm local. I know what's going on. And I can assure the public that this investigation is being handled professionally, methodically, and appropriately. And I applaud the Attorney General and his team for their efforts. Make no mistake, this is happening in exactly the manner that it should happen for any investigation of this nature. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes legs on the ground, feet on the ground. And these folks are in Flint all the time. I see Todd Flood in my offices as much as I see my assistant prosecutors. So this is proceeding exactly as it should. Secondly, I want to make this point that because I'm here, I see the victims of this crime, of these crimes. And this is not, we sometimes get the feeling that this is a victimless crime. This is not a victimless crime. There are tens of thousands of victims of these crimes that the Attorney General is charging. These are children, these are senior citizens, these are folks inflicted with poverty, these are folks who are middle class. Everybody has been touched by this crisis, and we need to remember that. And I just want to finally give a shout out to the Free Press, and I want to single it out because it had that special section in the newspaper the other day that was absolutely outstanding, and the photojournalist Ryan Garza, who's from Flint, took all those photographs, and it really set home. I was sitting in my living room looking in that newspaper at the faces of those victims, some of those folks pushing carts down the street with their water in it, some of them standing in alleys between shuttered buildings. And it really hit home. That's my city. And we've got a lot of things we got to accomplish here, and the Attorney General is certainly helping us get through this water crisis. So, thank you.
Thank you, David. Well, Andy and Todd and David and I are happy to take any questions right now. Yes, sir. Rod. You know, Rod, we just take him as we find them. And the fact is that this is a higher level of responsibility. These are governor-appointed emergency managers that we're charging today with 20-year felonies, and it's serious. And as Andy Arena said, we're going up and we're going broader. And what happens in the future? This is what we do. We read the emails, we have interviews, and we know how to put two and two together. And if there's sufficient probable cause that establishes a crime, then we charge it. We don't do it prematurely. This is a thorough investigation, fast-paced investigation. And again, I've said this before, nobody's on the table, nobody's off the table. We're not out to nail anybody. No mind if you've done something wrong, then you ought to be worried. If you've not done anything wrong, then you shouldn't worry. Please.
Mr. Flood, Mr. Arena, in this latest round of charges, what has been the most shocking for you guys to kind of uncover?
The biggest thing is what I said in my statement, and that was the plant being forced to be used when it wasn't ready. So you're by analogy flying a plane and trying to fix it while it's up in the air, knowing that at any moment the engine might fall out, right? So that was, to me, how could you turn that switch on knowing that there wasn't able to produce water, safe water?
Andy?
No, I agree with Todd. I think so many people knew that plant was not ready. And so many people said, don't do this, and yet it was done. And I think that's the thing that shocked me. And, I keep asking myself, what were they thinking? Why would you do this? And I haven't gotten a sufficient answer yet, other than greed but I think I agree with Todd. It's just, that plant was not ready to go, and they knew it.
Can I pick up there with Andy, you said, question their motive, I don't understand why they did it. Was there a personal benefit by Mr. Early and Mr. Amberley? Why would they do that?
And I'll bring Todd up here in a second, but I'm not sure you can always fully capture the motive, but as I mentioned in my comments, there's been this fixation, almost this obsession of balance sheets and metrics and finances. And this has been done at the expense of people and health and safety. And we've seen this tragedy. If a phosphate would have been put in the Flint water at a cost of about $200 a day, the leaching into the pipes would not have occurred. And there's a great example of money over people.
Is it possible that the city may be on the hook for these bonds legally because of what you found? Could they be free of these?
That's a separate issue as it relates to the bonding. That deals with a totally different contract. I'm here for the criminal aspect of this case, and that's it, right? So the bonding, that's a separate case. And I'm sure there will be some serious questions after these charges by that.
So,
Jim.
Just to pick up on those lines, was there ever a crisis with what you called a lime sludge lagoon, or was that totally made up? Did that ever exist? And this $85 million that they did get that went to Karagandhi, was that a make or break for Karagandhi, that without this $85 million, that wasn't going to be done, and they would never have an end?
Jim, yeah, two good questions, and I will give it to you because the answer is because they're in the public domain. Otherwise, I wouldn't have. But no, the lime sludge lagoon was not an emergency. It's not an emergency. You can only borrow money for emergencies, right? And that was not a calamity. One, two, as it relates to the $85 million, and again in the public domain. Had they not gotten the money by March 20th, or the ability to borrow money, then the KWA would have lost a construction cycle and put everything behind. So again, this is trying to fit that square peg in a round hole. You're trying to mandate something to be used when it wasn't ready to be used. And then two, the calamity was not a calamity.
Well, yeah.
That administrative consent order never could have happened without the state, certain state officials signing off on it. Should we expect more in that area, or in terms of criminal conduct, has the state been cleared?
You know, we just take it one at a time. We go where the facts take us without fear or favor. We said this from day one. That's the attitude we'll take. And we read the emails, we do the investigation, we have the interviews, and then we make decisions.
That's right.
Please.
How much, though, does the treasurer's office or the governor's office oversee the emergency managers when they come in and try to oversee things? They have to sign off on a lot of what those emergency managers do. Did they oversee this loan? Did they oversee any of this?
I'm not going to get into that right now. Good question. Rod. Excuse me, I'll be back to Rod. Some folks who haven't had a question from the media. Please.
No, I mean, it says right here in your press release that they had to, Flint needed the Michigan Department of Treasury's approval to get loans. So how much are they in your line of fire?
You know, again, there's really not a line of fire. The fact is this is a broad and comprehensive investigation. That's how we've conducted it. That's how we'll continue to do so through the course of this. Sir.
Who will be picking up the legal tab for those criminals? Will the city of Flint, the state of Michigan, think, when they're in their office, who will be picking up those legal tabs?
Well, that's a question we'll get to at another time, but right now I want to focus on the charges we filed. Who else hasn't had a question?
Closer to the end than the beginning. We all saw, I believe it was in September, that Leanne Schechter-Smith cut her plea deal down the street in court. And theoretically, she proffered the goods on other people, but yet those other people still have not been charged. So can you give us any kind of a timetable when we're closer to the end of this finish line?
I'm going to turn it to Todd here in a second, but we've now charged 14 people, and for these serious felonies today that are people in a high position of responsibility. So we just, stay tuned. Todd?
Jim, rushing is not always good. We're in this position in charging people because they tried to rush and meet a timeline. It's not always the best. It was Corinne Miller that pled, and we're still working the case. I'm not going to get into that portion of the investigation. Andy and Attorney General Bill Schuette said it best. We're taking the evidence and following it to our conclusion, and we're going to do it right. That's the bottom line.
Yes, sir.
At the beginning of this conference, you referred to people who want to just, blame this on nameless bureaucrats and brush it under the rug. Are you referring to the governor, or is there some other person you can tell specifically?
No, I'm not referring to anybody specifically, but you know and I know that there are voices out there, people out there who wish this would just go away. Sweep it under the rug. Let's forget about Flint, this refrain of, let's move on. That's wrong. Let me tell you one thing that illustrates how I feel about this. A couple of months ago, I was at an event entirely unrelated to Flint water. It was a charity event. So I'm at this event, and this woman comes up to me and gives me a hug. I had never met her. I'd never met her before. And she told me that her father had died of Legionnaire's disease. So she was one of the 12 who died. And I asked for her name tag, and I keep it with me. And her father was one who died. And when I think about those who wish this would just go away, sweep it under the rug, the 24-hour news cycle, consumes everything. Well, that's not going to happen. And that is the reminder of the responsibility we have, and the fact that this woman came up and said, thank you for doing this investigation, because her father was one of the 12 people who died. That keeps us going, but more so it underscores the significance of why we're doing what we're doing. And that's just exactly what we're going to do, period.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.